If you're about to sit the IELTS examination, then this is the video you need to watch, particularly for writing task 2. So today I'm going to give you all the basics and essentials from the point of view of an IELTS examiner. So let's go. So first of all, let's look at what we're going to talk about today. I suggest that you can go over these points again and again. So like and subscribe and click the bell below. What do we need to make good IELTS Task 2 writing answers? Well, first of all, we're going to look at repetition, and how to avoid repetition. We're going to look at essays and paragraphs. Then we'll look at joining the sentences, formal or more precise vocabulary and grammar, passive and relative clauses in particular. And then we'll look at some examples of general English before we look finally at IELTS example answers. So let's look at avoiding repetition. We avoid repetition in vocabulary and grammar so that we are flexible in our vocabulary and grammar. Here is a writing task 2 essay from one of my students, and you can see from the page that it's very colourful because I've highlighted the repeated words, repeated grammar, and other useless vocabulary. So let's have a closer look. So when we look at this one, you can see more closely the yellow words. Now look at the yellow words from the very beginning. I prefer, agree, taught children to cooperate, etc. So you can look for these words and you will see them repeated throughout. So here is cooperate, for example, followed by cooperate down here, and you will see cooperate elsewhere. Here is people at the beginning, and you will see people here, and people all the way through, as you can see down here. Here is the word children. You can look for the word children, and it's all over the place. Here's cooperate again. Here's maybe, and you'll see that over and over again. You'll see but, you'll see because, but again. There's because again. So these are repeated words over and over in one essay. This is limited vocabulary. Also, the green circles. What are the green circles here? Well, let's see. We've got if, so this means that it's repeated grammar. So they're not only using the same vocabulary, they're also using the same grammar over and over again in a small paragraph of an essay. And finally, we have circles here. Now, obviously, using the letter U, text language, is not good for any kind of essay, particularly a formal essay. But also we've got words like something, which is completely vague and could mean anything, and these words are useless in the IELTS Task 2 or any writing really. And as you see at the beginning, the student has also tried to rephrase the question. And finally, you can see that a lot of the words here repeated are taken from the question at the top. Question here has the words people, think, competition, children, we've seen already. Children again, we've got cooperate. All of these words are repeated over and over again in this passage, in this essay. And also I would suggest you have a quick look at how many paragraphs the student has written, as this often tells you that it's a not complete essay. Therefore, repetition is deadly for your score. For a high mark, you cannot and must not repeat words and grammar over and over again. Your job is to show flexibility. Added to that, do not repeat words or chunks of words from the question. As you can see in my last example, they're repeated throughout the essay. This is a big negative. Again, they're not your words. And what does it all mean? It means your language is limited. We don't want limited, we want flexible. Let's move on to essays and paragraphs. So, what's the task 2 paragraph structure? Well, the task 2 should have 4 paragraphs. It should have an introduction and a conclusion, and the introduction and conclusion should be very short, because the most important part of your essay are the middle 2 paragraphs, called the body paragraphs. Here's an example of an essay. You do not necessarily need to read the entire question. At the bottom, it says, describe pros and cons of genetically modified food. So what do you have to do there? You have a paragraph 1, a short introduction, paragraph 2, the pros, 3, the cons, and 4, short conclusion. There you go. Here's another essay. This time it's a do you agree or disagree essay. So how do you structure a agree or disagree essay? Paragraph 1, introduction, plus an opinion this time, because they're asking if you agree or not. The introduction's short. Paragraph 2, individual efforts will give results. That's one side. Only the government. Paragraph 3 on the other side. And paragraph 4 has a conclusion, repeating your opinion and make it short. Essay 3. This time the essay is easier to structure, or it should be. As you see, they have two questions. It's an essay. So this time, in this essay, you have two clear questions. Thus, you make a paragraph for each question. So you have a short introduction, you have a paragraph answering the first question, a paragraph answering the second question, and then a short conclusion. 4 paragraphs. So that's the essay structure. So what about the paragraph structure? Well, the paragraph structure should be very clear and always the same. Sentence 1 should be the topic that you're going to talk about, or a statement. Make a statement in sentence 1. Sentence 2, explain the statement with an explanation. Sentence 3, give an example. Sentence 4, conclude or write a transition sentence moving to the next paragraph. And this has a special name called the C structure, which we'll look at next. Therefore, the main body should consist of 2 paragraphs. Each of these paragraphs should use this paragraph structure. Introduction, conclusion, not so much. Paragraph structure is for paragraphs 2 and 3. And that, as I said, the paragraph structure has a name. It's called SEE structure, which means you make a statement at the beginning, then you explain your statement, and then you follow the explanation. You make it even clearer through an example. Why do we do that? Because this extends and supports your answer, and that is required in the task 2 writing descriptors. So you give an answer, you extend by explaining, and then you support it further with an example. That's what they want, and that's what you should give them. Now, you don't need to always write only 4 sentences. You can give many examples, many explanations, but that's the structure. Let's move on to joining sentences. Coherence and cohesion criteria of the descriptors, where they talk about cohesive devices. Now, cohesive devices can be several things, but one of them are the joining words that you use to put 2 sentences together or 2 clauses together to make a longer, more complex sentence. For example, when you give explanations, you often use the word because. That's a joining word. But of course, because is a very simple word. We saw it earlier in my student's essay. They used the word because, which was good, but then they repeatedly used the word because, which is bad. So therefore, you want to show variety or flexibility, so you can use different words for because, and they join sentences, and this is good for your coherence and cohesion mark. Also, but. My student repeated but several times in his essay, but he could have used different words but to show flexibility, and there are words like and despite that would do this. So if you want to learn more about different words for because and but, then look at my previous videos on these topics. So if you still have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe now and you can see those videos. Moving on to formal, more precise vocabulary. Of course, these essays must be formal, and the precision of the vocabulary indicates the level of the student. If you can be very precise with your vocabulary, then obviously you will get a higher mark. So in order to do this, let's begin with basic general English, and then we will progress to the IELTS level of English. Why? Because all students begin with basic general English. They take the IELTS to go to university, which is academic English, and IELTS is in the middle between general and academic English. So this is the natural progression. It's a very simple sentence, I got a drink. That's a very simple general sentence. Can you improve the vocabulary of this sentence by making it more formal or academic? Let's try it. So they use the word get. Now, get is a very general word. It's good for speaking, but not so much for writing. So what could we use instead of get? Well, we could use obtain, acquire, or procure. Or if we just mean to buy something, we could say purchase. Any of these words are better in writing than get. The small sentence only had 4 words. Another word is drink. Do we know any other words for drink? Well, what about beverage, libation, or refreshment? So all of these words mean drink, but they are more precise. So each word is slightly different in meaning. Therefore, you choose the word that is more exact for what you want to say. And let's look at the word you often have to say when you're writing IELTS because they ask for your opinion. It's difficult to avoid. In general English, you can use I all the time. Universities, academic English, you almost never use the word I. But IELTS is in the middle, so we can use it sometimes, but how could we avoid using it? So one of the ways of avoiding using I is to use the passive voice. So do you know the passive? So let's go. Let's look from the start. We started with I got a drink, and then we could move to I obtained a drink. I obtained a beverage, slightly different. I purchased a beverage, so it means you bought it this time. Or I purchased a libation, which is slightly different again, but that now has 4 words, just like the beginning, but the words are much more formal. And if we look at marks, I got a drink would generally suggest a 4 or below. The grammar is extremely simple. The words are extremely basic. They're correct, but that's it. If you use the words that we have just used to improve the sentence, then your mark would rocket up. Now let's look at passive, as we mentioned, and relative clauses. How could these improve our sentence, make them more formal and academic? So if we say active, we say, I purchased a libation. That's what we were saying. What if we made it passive? Then you would say a libation was purchased, and you remove the I. What if we use a relative clause? So what do relative clauses do? They add more information or more detail. They make what you're saying more precise. And you want to be precise and clear for the examiner to read. So let's go. So if we change the sentence that we made last time and make it even better with grammar this time, let's see how it changes. So I purchased a libation. A libation was purchased. A libation which was economically produced in Chile was purchased. So now we're using relative clause and passive. A libation which was economically produced in Chile was purchased for an exorbitant amount. So we're adding more vocabulary. And you can do this with sentences. You can keep improving them. Therefore, we began with a very basic general English sentence, I got a drink, and we ended with a more academic and formal sentence, a libation which was economically produced in Chile was purchased for an exorbitant amount. Now you can see how complex the sentence is and how loaded it is with grammar and vocabulary. And what does that do? It gives us more detail and makes what we're saying much clearer. So can you create similar sentences? Here are 2 short sentences, very basic. Can you make them slightly more complex and with better vocabulary? The first one, I made a good argument. Second one, illegal immigration is bad for society. So have a go. You can try yourself, and then we'll have a look. So there are many possible answers. Depends what you want to say, depends which words and grammar you want to use. Here are 2 examples. Number 1, an argument which demanded a response was constructed in a rational and considered manner. There's no I, it's a much more complex sentence, and it's using both passive and relative clauses. The second one, it is claimed that immigration has detrimental effects on society. Detrimental, a very good word instead of bad, and we don't want to say good and bad, because they're as basic a words that you can find. So here's another example of another sentence using such things, and this sentence is loaded with marks, really. So the first one is marker or linker expression with furthermore. We have a passive voice stem that's using the passive in a phrase at the beginning of the sentence. It can be argued. Academic reporting verbs, so these are words like claim, maintain, suggest, etc. That the media is biased despite claims of journalistic balance. So linking word is despite instead of but, and good vocabulary throughout. So bias, journalistic balance, etc. So we'll move on now to general English examples using this kind of language. Let's look at general English examples, try to improve them with better vocabulary and better grammar. Here's a little paragraph, a little general English story. Jessica's a very nice girl. She's friendly and tender. Actually, she also is one of my best friends. When our friend sees something that makes her feel sad, she will listen to me patiently and comfort me. Though sometimes we fight, we end up doing well. We treasure our friendship very much. So you look at that. Which words should you replace immediately, and what other words can you use? Here are some joining words, and we put the joining words into the same story. Jessica, who's one of my best friends, is a friendly and tender girl. When our friend sees something that makes her feel sad, she'll listen to me patiently and comfort me. Although sometimes we fight, we end up doing well. Therefore, we treasure our friendship very much. So this example used joining words, and that included a relative clause, actually, also. But immediately the language begins to flow and the sentences are longer. Now let's add more cohesion and vocabulary. Jessica, who is a reliable companion, is also an amicable and empathetic person. When her companion experiences an unpleasant event, she'll give him her full and undivided attention in a tolerant manner. Despite sometimes having an altercation, a positive solution is often discovered. Therefore, this is a friendship to value. This adds more better joining words that also uses better vocabulary. For example, argument becomes altercation. The sentences also employ passive as well as the relative clause. So we've looked at how to improve the general English. Now let's apply this to the IELTS examples. Here's an IELTS question. Many young people today prefer shopping online to shopping in the high street. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So you agree or disagree. So on the left-hand side, you see an original answer, which is by a student. And on the right-hand side, you will see an improved version. So let's look at the original. Many young people think the shopping online is fashion. The high street shopping is out of fashion. They can have their free time to buy something. So obviously lots of mistakes, but look at the vocabulary. You see the word something, you must remove this immediately. And so you want to improve this. I would suggest one of the things to improve is to avoid saying many young people at the beginning of the sentence. The improved version, shopping online is fashionable for the younger generations today compared to the less trendy high street shopping due to the fact that they have more free time to purchase what they want from the comfort of their home. And that last one is a full sentence, but a good flowing full sentence. So you don't need to begin every answer with many people today or many young people today. You use joining words instead of the commas in the original, which were wrong, and you use better than basic words, avoiding repetition. So I'll let you read this one yourself, but this needs improving also. It's the next part of the answer about shopping online. I would point out that if you look immediately at this answer, you see several words repeated over and over again, and you see a sentence beginning with but, and you also see many young people, and also the word something is repeated, which is not good even to use once. So let's look at part of this. What could we change? Well, we could change the beginning. We could say with reference to online shopping. Instead of saying many, we could use other expressions like numerous, great numbers of. There are many to choose from. It's more convenient to utilize their personal time. Personal time is like free time. Utilize a better word for use. To purchase goods instead of to buy something. But we've looked at purchase already and we suggested it earlier. And a good phrase that could be used is in a quick and timely fashion. So here's another IELTS Task 2 question. It's to do with the aging population, old people in the population of a country. But the question is, to what extent do the advantages of an aging population outweigh the disadvantages? And they ask you for reasons and include any relevant examples, which I know you were going to do anyway. So think about this. I'm going to show you a student's answer. What words could this student possibly repeat from the question in the answer? Let's have another look at the question. Just look at it very quickly. What words do you see? So what words do you think they may repeat? Well, maybe they'll repeat the word people because it's very difficult not to repeat the word people. Elderly, aging, society, government could be repeated also. Well, so first things first, we want to avoid saying the word people. How do we do it? It's difficult to do. However, first thing is, of course, to use synonyms, but often the synonyms mean slightly different things. So let's have a look at some synonyms. The first one we could say is individuals. We could also say citizens, members of society, and others are like the public, residents, workers, consumers, commuters. But as you see, consumers, commuters, they mean slightly different things depending on the topic, but we could use them because we don't want to keep saying people. And obviously we could try to use the passive voice. Another way to avoid saying people is to use the phrase those who. So those who has several meanings, but those who can replace people while referring to a specific subset of individuals. For example, people who prefer urban areas often cite better job opportunities. Those who value a quieter lifestyle choose the countryside. Another, people who smoke are at higher risk of lung disease. Those who quit improve their health significantly. And you can also use those who to describe groups based on their actions or choices. Example, people often rely on public transport. Those who commute daily benefit most from efficient systems. Or people are concerned about pollution. Those who recycle contribute positively to the environment. Possibly the best use is when we highlight differences in perspectives, preferences, or opinions. And this means that you could use those who when you're making your introductions and conclusions. For example, people hold varying opinions on climate change. Those who deny its existence resist policy changes. Or, people choose different modes of transport. Those who drive cars often face higher costs compared to cyclists. So here's the first main body paragraph of the student's answer. So if you're watching the video, you can pause and read it. And there were other repeated words. Let's have a quick look again. So look for the repeated words there. Were we correct? We said words like people, elderly, perhaps government, society, aging. Are these words repeated in this beginning of an answer? Well, yes, a lot of them are, and there's a couple of other words repeated. These words are increase and family. Increase is a word that's often repeated, especially in task 1, so we should know synonyms at least for the word increase or even decrease. So here is increase, and here are some possible synonyms. You could say rise, hike, grow, or accumulate, which is one I think sounds particularly good, but slightly more precise meanings than just increase. The answer also has some inappropriate vocabulary just to highlight. Inappropriate in the sense that it's not formal, it's informal. For example, do a great favor to financial development. So do a great favor to suggests very informal language, the kind of thing you would say. And financial development, again, it sounds more formal. So you have a very informal beginning to this sentence and a very formal end, and it's all in the one sentence. Sounds strange. So in the descriptors, the examiner is told to look out for word formation errors. And this essay has several word formation errors. What are word formation errors? Well, if you want to use a verb, but instead you use a noun, and this is wrong. You want to use an adjective, but instead you use a verb, and it's wrong. That's a word formation. You're choosing the wrong form of the same word. For example, in the essay, the student writes to stability, but stability is not a verb, so you cannot say to stability. The correct thing to say is to stabilize. The student also says the accompany, but accompany is not a noun, it's a verb. So what was he trying to say? He was probably trying to say the company of. So looking at the structure, is it correctly organized, like the C structure? If it is organized, is it very clear? So is there an explanation? Is there an example? And if so, are they very clear or are they a bit general and vague? So this is a suggested way to introduce your answer. There are those who claim that an aging population can be problematic and others who see as beneficial. Therefore, this is a good way to begin one of your task 2 answers. There are those who. So again, here is the main body paragraph from his answer. You can quickly look at it again. And now we're going to change some grammar, see what grammar he used. So what grammar did he use? Present simple, relative clauses, modal verb, and passive. So he did use these, but perhaps they weren't very good. They were maybe wrong. So let's look at how to make this better. So what's the student trying to say? What's the point? The point is an aging population can be beneficial to society. Why? Because it stabilizes society, the family is happy, and it increases employment. That seems to be what he's trying to say. So how do we structure this? We make a statement, we explain, we give an example. That should make it clear. And also look for opportunities to use more precise formal words, and of course the grammar I've suggested. So here we go. So firstly, let's look at the summary of what we think he's trying to say. An aging population can be beneficial to society because it stabilizes society, makes the family happy, and increases employment. We think that's what he's trying to say. How do we improve that? From one perspective, an older demographic can be instrumental in bringing stability through a wealth of experience and knowledge. For example, older professionals can guide or mentor younger employees while also sharing expertise in education, healthcare, and other sectors of society. Better vocabulary, better grammar, uses better structure. For a much higher mark, I should say, we can look at the next sentence. Here's the improved version. Furthermore, the family unit can be strengthened by the presence of grandparents who have retired, since they can care for children. For a much higher mark, here is his original sentence, and here is the improved version. And as you can notice, there are markers at the beginning, there are passive. So in the improved answer, you can see the use of passive, the use of relative clauses, the use of connecting or joining words like since, thus, etc., and better vocabulary. And the next part of his answer went like this, and our improved version goes like this. Again, better vocabulary and a little clear example also. So even this improved answer could be made better through vocabulary, grammar, and even better examples. So if you want to improve your mark in task 2 quickly, then you do the basics well first, and then you build upon the basics. So what are the basics? First of all, you want to avoid repetition. You want to organize your paragraphs and essays well. You want to join your sentences well, make formal, more precise vocabulary, and use passive and relative clauses to give more detail to your sentences. So use them well, you'll get better quickly, and then you can build upon that. After this, in my next few videos, I'm going to look at writing task 1 and all the different types of questions involved. Hey, thanks for listening all the way to the end of this video. If there's any information you would like me to share with you from these slides, please let me know and I'll put it in the community of my channel below. And I'd really appreciate it if you leave any comments below telling me what you may like me to cover in these videos, whether to do with writing or speaking. So just let me know below.